Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to learn more about this London commuter town hotspot that offers high yields. Staines-upon-Thames, JRL and Seville Singapore is proud to present this collaboration with Berkeley Group for this webinar. Stay tuned as I, Rachel Ho from Seville Singapore, and Vidya Lester from JLL will jointly delve into exploring Staines-upon-Thames, find out how through its strong economic fundamentals, this London commuter town can translate to offer high investment returns. We will then hand over to Rob Willis from the Berkeley Group, who will then share more on Eden Grove, an aspiring new residential quarter located in Staines-upon-Thames. At the end of our webinar, we will have a brief Q&A session to address any queries you may have. So why are we shining a spotlight on Staines-upon-Thames? Where exactly is this city? Staines-upon-Thames is a town on the left bank of the River Thames in Surrey, England, in the borough of Spelton. It is within the London commuter belt and the Greater London urban area, which makes it a place that is practicable to commute to work in London. Travelling from Staines-upon-Thames to London Waterloo only takes 35 minutes by train. Staines-upon-Thames is also the closest town to Heathrow Airport and is easily accessible from the M25 motorway. Now, these are just some fun facts and history of Staines. In the year 1285, Staines was still a part of London, and the London stones, if you can see in this picture over here where I'm circling, used to mark the western limit of the City of London's jurisdiction and is found right here in Staines. Now, not too far away in the backyard of Staines-upon-Thames is the Windsor Castle. This famous castle is a mere 15 minutes drive to the west of Staines, home to over 30 monarchs, and over the course of the last 900 years, Windsor Castle has been used as a venue for royal ceremonies and weddings. Now that you have a general awareness of where Staines-upon-Thames is, let us explore the connectivity of this town. Many people living in the borough of Spelton choose to work locally, with over 60% travelling less than 6.2 miles to work. Gatwick Airport is just 40 minutes down south, and Heathrow Airport is on the doorstep, with the central terminal being 16 minutes away and Terminal 5 just 10 minutes away. Both Heathrow and Gatwick serve UK as the number 1 and number 2 busiest airports. Besides being close to the airport, commuting to central London is quick and easy. From the Staines-upon-Thames train station, taking a direct train to London Waterloo is just 35 minutes journey, whereas Clacton Junction is a 27-minute journey away. Also, with the 3 new crossrail stations opening in the vicinity, this sets to reduce travel time to Bond Street from 38 minutes down to 26. Being close to the motorways also helps to facilitate people's daily commute. M25 is just 7 minutes away and offers easy access to both the M3 as well as M4. Of the 18,000 residents that commute into London, over half travel to the neighbouring boroughs of Hounslow and Hillingdon. The high-tech hubs of Windsor, Slough, and Reading are also within easy reach. Now, with all this in mind, it is without a doubt that Staines-upon-Thames boasts superb transport connectivity. So we all know that location is an important factor influencing a property's value. Since I have established that Staines-upon-Thames has such strong transportation links, how does this affect local property value? Vidya, would you like to enlighten us on this?
Thank you, Rachel, for that interesting introduction on Staines. Indeed, I'm sure our audience is here to also understand the housing market in Staines-upon-Thames. This graph in front of you here illustrates that historically, there has been a steady price growth of 22% in the last 5 years. Why is that? Clearly, there is a great demand of housing in well-established commuter town of London, particularly for new homes, which contributed to the upward price movements. I will also talk about other contributing factors to why Staines-upon-Thames is desirable for living that contributes to the demand and supply dynamics later on in my presentation. But looking back, At the graphs, you will see that the current average price today is circa 450,000, which is in line with the pricing at our latest development at Eden Grove. In this slide here, you will see that house price growth in Staines-upon-Thames has clearly outperformed other emerging second-tier cities in the UK, such as Birmingham and even Manchester, due to its position as an emerging commuter town to London. The price growth of Staines-upon-Thames at 60% in the last 10 years is definitely an encouraging sign of the area's investment performance and its potential. Now, you may wonder, could the price grow further? Indeed, our forecast indicates that in the next 5 years, we can expect a price growth of 22.1%, surpassing the London's forecast, which is only growing at 20%. We believe that the price will continue to grow beyond the next 5 years on the basis that the population is expected to grow by 11% in the next decade, which will require at least 500 new homes per annum to accommodate the population and its projection of a 24% increase of household by 2039. Now let's have a look at the rental performance. These are current achievable rents in the town center. As you can see, a one bed is around 1,300 per calendar month, and the rental range for a two bed is 1,400 to 1,650 per calendar month. Rental indeed is strong, and in fact, it's not too different from other Greater London locations in Zone 4 perhaps. However, as the property prices is still affordable, you could expect a greater yield of close or even more than 5% when you invest in Staines-upon-Thames. This slide really talks about the demographics of the population. And as a comparison to Staines-upon-Thames, we have selected 4 emerging cities which have similar price point in terms of house prices. As you can see from the data here, Staines has a profile of the highest educated earners, whereby 82% of its population are in employment. The higher weekly wages means that they have a higher disposable income to spend on rental. This also means that the profile of tenants here are solid, which will give you an assurance on a steady income as investors. A higher working population would also be good for the resale market, as these high earners will then have a higher disposable income to eventually purchase their own homes. The crime rates is actually pretty low, which would overall increase the desirability to live in a safe community. We also observe a population increase in Staines-upon-Thames due to the regional migration. 58% of the migration is actually from London boroughs, which does not come as a surprise that the property prices in Staines is at least £100,000 lesser than of London. There are also various economic potential in Staines, ranking number 1 in UK for business startups, particularly for technology, digital and design-based companies. They have welcomed more than 1,100 new homes since 2010. It has become a digital ecosystem in its own rights due to the advanced infrastructure already in place in the local area. It is not a surprise that Staines-upon-Thames attract this kind of success, as it has 87% access to ultra-fast, broadband, which is higher than London average and significantly higher than other locations in the UK. It is within a top 10% contributor to the UK's economy with £141 million per annum. The most high profile is the £500 million expansion for Netflix in the area, which will create 2,000 new jobs. Early on in the presentation, Rachel has shared on how well connected Staines-upon-Thames is, which will ultimately mean that there will be a continued demand for future earners, renters and owners alike due to its accessibility to these global employees, both locally in the local area, as well as the business parks in the Commuter town, as well as central London, all within and under an hour's travel. These are big companies such as Apple, HSBC, Microsoft. In the local area itself, you are walking distance to big companies such as Salesforce and Netflix, as I mentioned earlier. And you could also reach Zone 1 Central London in under half an hour in locations like Paddington and Tottenham Court Road. You can even go further west in the Western Corridor, where big companies such as Deloitte and Huawei are located at Reading. Heathrow is only 10 minutes away, which will appeal to international travelers, as well as companies that are located there, such as British Airways and Etihad. Rachel, would you like to explore and expand a little bit more on the Heathrow effect?
Yes, thank you very much, Vidya. So what is the Heathrow effect? Just 10 minutes away, Heathrow Airport is the busiest two-runway airport in the world, handling 80.1 million passengers in 2018. It is also the country's largest airport in terms of goods traffic, with 1.7 million metric tons of cargo transported just last year. The airport also supports some 69,000 jobs generated by over 400 companies, some of which was mentioned by Vidya earlier on. Now, half of Heathrow's employees, a 54% proportion, are residents in the local area. Discussions remain ongoing regarding the development of a direct rail link between Staines-upon-Thames and Heathrow Terminal 5. When that happens, undoubtedly, this will drive even more people to look for residential homes in Staines-upon-Thames. Now, let us talk about the education opportunities in the area around Staines. There are 21 independent schools within 6 miles of Staines-upon-Thames, and students of all ages have access to some of UK's top education establishments over here. The Royal Holloway University, a top 20 UK university, is home to over 12,000 students and staff, and it's less than 10 minutes away. Levels of student satisfaction here are higher than the national average, with over a quarter of all students studying here from overseas, and 17% of them are mature students aged over 25. Eton College, which is 20 minutes drive away, this is where the Princes Prince Henry and Prince William were educated. It is also where 19 of the UK's prime ministers were educated, and is home to 1,300 students aged between 11 to 19. Staines-upon-Thames also offer easy access to the London School of Economics, the University College of London, Imperial College, as well as King's College of London. Research also indicates that there is a 70% retention rate for students to remain around London after their studies. With a growing young population, housing demand will surely remain strong. Now let us invite Rob Willis from the Berkeley Group to share more on this development, Eden Grove, an aspiring new residential quarter in Staines-upon-Thames.
Great. Thank you very much, Rachel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here today. My name is Rob. I'm here from the Berkeley Group Singapore office, and I'm here to give you a little bit of an update on Eden Grove and tell you a little bit about the newest development within the Berkeley Group. So ultimately, Eden Grove is located in Staines-upon-Thames, which is in the west of London on the banks of the River Thames. It offers fantastic access to Heathrow Airport and also central London to the west. But it also has great access to the affluent areas of Windsor, Ascot, and Virginia Water. As you can see from this aerial image of Eden Grove and Staines-upon-Thames, London is very close there in the background, as is Heathrow Airport. But what you'll also notice is the abundance of green space. This is due to the fact that Eden Grove and Staines-upon-Thames are within the London Greenbelt. Therefore, it is extremely hard to obtain land for redevelopment, hence why Eden Grove has had such a success in sales rate since it launched just a few weeks ago. So Eden Grove is located in the centre of Staines along the London Road, just a few minutes walk away from the high street and centre of Staines-upon-Thames. Within the high street and the centre of Staines-upon-Thames, there is an abundance of retail, leisure, food, drink, and business opportunities. Therefore, if you're a resident or a tenant living at Eden Grove, no matter what you're looking for, whether or not it's food, restaurants, coffees, shopping, it's all within a few moments' walk from the development itself. Not only that, 4 global major businesses are within walking distance from the development itself. Hitachi, Bupa, Samsung, and Salesforce, and of course, Netflix coming soon. If you want to go further afield, Staines train station is just a 6-minute walk away from the development, which will give you easy access into central London and also out towards the west of the UK as well. So what is one of the main reasons why so many people want to live in Staines and at Eden Grove is due to the quality of life that it offers. Of course, the metropolis of London is on your doorstep, just a few minutes away, but Staines offers that quality of life where you've got that nature on your doorstep and an opportunity to really call home. So let me talk to you a little bit about the development that we're building. Ultimately, Eden Grove will consist of 6 blocks centered around a landscape garden in the center. The first building will be Lavender House at the bottom right of your screen here, which is our first phase and first release where we have opportunities for apartments for sale today. This is also a great building to buy into as it has all the amenities for the development, which will always mean it will be popular with tenants and future purchasers moving forward. Eden Grove has been designed by world-renowned architect Scott Brownwig. They have done many developments throughout the UK, including our very own Vista and 250 City Road developments. But more closer to home, they've designed the Singapore Data Hub, as well as the Reading campus in Johor Bahru. It is important to remember about Eden Grove that it's not just a residential development. It's very much a mixed-use development, offering both retail and commercial offerings on the scheme. The central landscaping of the development will very much be the heart and will be a place where all residents and tenants can come home and relax in tranquility. The development is ultimately comprised of 489 homes. 446 of these are private, with 43 affordable, which will be in their own separate block. There will be over 25,000 square feet of commercial space and 346 car parking spaces, which means there'll be enough for the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. The amenities at Eden Grove are second to none. They're the same that you would expect in any Zone 1 located development these days. You'll have a 24-hour hotel-style concierge. There'll also be a co-working space, which in this day and age is required more than ever, with more and more people working from home. There'll also be a private cinema room, which a recent survey had as the #1 request from tenants looking for new apartments, as well as a private residence gym. The views on offer from Eden Grove will be fantastic. From the lower floors, you'll have great views into the landscape gardens. But due to Staines being a relatively low-rise area of the UK, the higher floors will have fantastic views over towards the reservoirs, as well as central London, and over towards the west of the UK as well. So no matter which apartment you choose, the views will be fantastic. The interiors have also been meticulously designed by our team back in London. These are ultimately what we call turnkey properties. So all the major fixtures and fittings will be included upon completion, including your kitchens, your flooring, your bedrooms, your bathrooms. So all you'll need to provide is the soft furnishings. Furthermore, we'll have 3 different color palettes, so you'll be able to customize the feel and look of your home as well. So in terms of our first release at Lavender House, it will ultimately consist of 130 apartments, 91 bedrooms and 42 bedrooms, set over 12 floors. Completion will be from Q3, Q4 2023. Our 1 bedrooms start from 320,000 and 2 bedrooms from 495,000. This is significantly cheaper than other opportunities of the same square footage towards central London and offer a far higher yields than anything we have else across the London group right now. I'll hand back over to Widya to explain more.
Thank you, Rob. So I'm sure many of you are curious about the investment performance that you could potentially achieve in Eden Grove. Here we have an illustration of the rental expectation for one bed. We have selected plot F2.05, which has an asking price of £360,000. Many of you would know by now that financing is available for buy-to-let investment. And as an illustration, I have prepared a cash flow based on a 60% financing. At the moment, the interest rate for pounds is at 3.4%. And if you have a loan tenure of 30 years, your principal plus interest repayment is at $958 per month. As mentioned, the rental expectation for one bed in town center of Staines is at 1,450. So that is the estimated that we put up here. As an investor, the two main expenses that you will need to put into consideration are the letting and management fee, which is £174 per month, as well as the service charge and ground rent, which is at £191 per month. That will give you a net monthly rental income of $1,085. And as you can see from the cash flow in front of you, it self-services your loan, which is a great investment, in my opinion. And so looking at the yield, you are looking at gross rental yield of 4.83% for this particular unit, and a net rental yield of 3.62%. So let's move on to a two-bed example. The purchase price for plot 3.09 is at £495,000. Yep, apologies for that technical glitch. Again, on the similar financing option at 60% financing, you are looking at principal plus interest repayment of $1,317 per month. Over here, the expected gross monthly rental income is at £2,000 per month. Less of all of your expenses, your net is looking at 1,494, again, covering your principal plus interest repayment. We are now looking at a gross rental yield of 4.85% and a net of 3.6%, which is indeed one of the better performer in terms of, London. When you compare it to London, this is definitely a better performer investment. I'm sure you have many questions about the cash flow in front of you, but don't worry. Representatives from JLL and Savills will be able to go through with you in greater detail. So do book your appointment with us later. So Rob, perhaps I'll pass it back to you to summarize the development.
Sure, thanks, Widya. Yeah, so ultimately, you've got a fantastic development with best-in-class facilities and specification, located in a very affordable part of London, close to first-class education, as well as great businesses, with strong performing yields and relatively affordable price point to get in at. So thank you very much for listening to us. And if you have any further questions, please do write them in the box below.
Thank you very much, Rob. That was really very informative, and I'm sure the audience have a lot of questions for us now. As we have come to the Q&A portion of this webinar, please feel free to type any questions you may have in the Q&A box below. You may address your questions to any one of our panelists. I would also like to take this time to highlight to our audience that we will be able to schedule a one-to-one meeting at the Berkeley office for you to learn more about this development, Eden Grove. All right, so let's start off with our first question. And I think Rob may be able to take this. So Mr. Tan asks, why should I buy Staines instead of London?
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to your own personal preference, but Staines is essentially London. It's just a part of Greater London. And ultimately, it offers a great starting price to get into the London market and fantastic yields that you wouldn't see necessarily in more central London locations.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's another question here. What is the payment schedule like for this Eden Grove?
So the current payment schedule is 15% on exchange of contracts after 21 days, 5% after 6 months, and another 5% after a further 6 months, and with 75% on completion in 2023.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I think, Vidya, earlier on you mentioned about financing. Maybe you can expand more on that. Is financing available for Staines?
Yep, definitely. Here in Singapore, we have UK accredited mortgage brokers that we could set up an appointment with you to have an analysis of how much borrowing you can. We have checked with our mortgage brokers. Definitely, they can finance properties here. So do reach out to your respective sales consultants to book an appointment with a mortgage broker. So don't worry about that.
Okay, in the same light as well, Mr. Joseph Teo was asking about the rental expectation cash analysis that you mentioned earlier. He asked that it did not show loan interest only, but yeah, your rental expectation did not show loan interest.
Well, it is on the cash flow. Mr. Teo, don't worry. Someone will be sending you the cash flow and go through it with you again. If you're talking about interest-only financing, not to worry as well, because the mortgage broker has a couple of financing options for you to look at. It could be fixed interest only, it could be principal plus interest only, variable. Again, I advise you to have that consultation from the mortgage broker.
Okay, thank you so much. So maybe this is back to Rob. So being close to the Heathrow Airport, will there be constant noise from the airplanes flying over? Is Eden Grove under the flight path from Heathrow Airport?
No, so Eden Grove isn't under the Heathrow flight path. So ultimately, you get all the benefits from Heathrow, obviously it being close by, the employment opportunities that come out of that, but it isn't underneath the flight path, so you won't be getting disturbed by the planes themselves.
Okay, great. So Ms. Chan also would like to ask, I think we have a lot of investors attending our webinar today. So Ms. Chan is asking, is there a large number of university students living in the vicinity, and what type of people work and will look to rent in Staines-upon-Thames?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of the student population, it has a very strong student population. Of course, you've got the major London universities nearby in central London, but you've also got Royal Holloway very close by, which many students rent in Staines itself. So the student population is actually very strong in the area. In terms of the rental market and the rental demand, as you've seen, there's many global companies located either in Staines or within the surrounding area. Whether or not you're talking about BP, Hitachi, Salesforce, Netflix. So these sort of high quality apartments, which there really aren't a lot of in Staines itself, will be sought after by young professionals as well as students, and also downsizers from the area as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So Mr. Cho also asks, who do you expect to be the main buyers of Eden Grove? Owner-occupiers or investors? And yeah, so that's his question.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, I think like all developments, there's going to be a mix between the two. It's Eden Grove has sold well to investors already. Obviously, the high yields are very attractive, and also the strong growth moving forward is also very attractive for a place like Eden Grove from an investment point of view. But having said that, to get this quality in Staines right now isn't really an option, and therefore we're seeing a lot of interest from locals as well, who, although it's off plan, are still willing to get into the development early in order to essentially live in the best quality development within the region.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to note, maybe let me chime in here, that there's nothing comparable to Eden Grove in Staines-upon-Thames. As you mentioned, this is almost one of the highest residential developments that will be offered in this city, because everything else is pretty low rise. And I think the comparable that is nearby is London Square. And even that in itself, that development doesn't offer as many amenities as Eden Grove. So Eden Grove is really a very good product for an investment unit. So if you want to find out more, please contact us as well. So on that note, Mr. Cho, the same person, he's also asking which other suburbs within London is comparable with Staines. Rob, do you have any ideas on that?
It's an interesting one. I would definitely say it's quite similar to Kingston, Kingston-upon-Thames. Again, that's another London suburb, southwest location, with fantastic amenities on the doorstep. I would just say that ultimately Staines is closer to businesses and is also actually quite significantly cheaper on a pound per square foot and a cost basis as well. So I'd definitely say Kingston, maybe Slough might be something that's slightly similar, but really it's kind of one in its own.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we have another question here that asks about car parking. So is car parking necessary with the purchase if they are purchasing for buy-to-let, considering that this seems to be a local suburban area?
It's not definitely a necessity to buy car parking. The whole of London is very well supplied by public transport. Of course, you've got the train station just a few minutes away. You've got plenty of bus networks around the region, and of course, you've got Uber and various taxi services. So it's certainly not a necessity. You don't need the car to go to the shop, for example. You don't need the car to get to the train station. So I think it really will come down to your tenant and whether or not you believe he or she needs it for traveling to work. But I would say for the vast majority of people, they won't need a car. But of course, if you want a car park, it is available.
Okay, great. So are there any 3-bedrooms in this development?
Yes, we will have three bedrooms available in a later phase. So in phase 1, it's just 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. There is the opportunity of combining a 2 and a 1 bedroom together if you would really want a 3 bedroom, or we could look at releasing the later 3 bedrooms that will be released in the next block.
Great, thanks, Rob. And I think, okay, one more question for Vidya. So who will be assisting investor buyers with lettings and management upon completion? I think both of us can answer this as well. Vidya, do you want to go ahead and take this?
Yeah, sure. JLL and Savills UK have a very strong residential team. So we will be assisting you with the lettings and management as well. So not to worry. Even before completion, what typically happens is that our team will be in touch with all of the buyers, and we will assist you with getting it listed on the local market. So prior to completion, we would have received inquiries for potential tenants. So right when at completion at key handover, we will be able to assist you with the inspection, with the viewing. So for new builds, in my experience, there isn't much of a vacant period because we will start marketing way ahead. And also the teams here in Singapore, both teams here in Singapore will be holding your hand, will be guiding you throughout the whole way.
Yes, thank you very much, Vidya, for that. So if you have any other questions regarding lettings management as well, please do drop us a note and we will, of course, sit down with you to explain more. So maybe we can take 1 or 2 more questions before we end off this webinar today. Thank you so much for your time in attending this webinar and joining us this evening. So let's take the last 2 questions. So how much of the percentage of the development are sold? Rob, do you have any figures on this?
Exact figures is pretty hard to come by. We're probably looking at around, of the first block, we'll be looking at around 30% already sold. Yeah, and then considering continues to sell every day, so I have to check with London exactly.
And considering we just started the international, the global launch not too long ago, so I think that's a good, good indication of how attractive this development is, both locally and international.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is less than 1 or 2 months, and already 30% is sold. So it's quite an achievement for us. So let's do one last question before we end this webinar today. And okay, let's see. So maybe we can ask something about, this is a general question. It's just asked, have you seen a greater number of people moving out of London since COVID-19? So I think both are, yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
to that, I mean, ultimately, for example, if you were living in a more central London location, paying rent, you would only be able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. And we have seen people looking to upgrade to 2-bedroom apartments across the board, just because with more and more working from home, people just want that additional space if at all possible. So where you'll see somewhere like Eden Grove really come into its own is that, you know, the 2 bedrooms become a lot more affordable than a 1-bedroom in central London. So people will be looking to move out to these slightly, you know, further out locations where you've got a bit more space, where you've got nice open areas. You've got walks along the River Thames, for example, and that sort of quality of life that's sort of been a little bit taken away from people during these lockdowns periods has seen an increase in apartments that are bigger for sure.
All right.
And
Thanks so
if
much.
anyone, well, sorry, I was just going to add, if anyone is interested to know more, actually our UK Living Research team has come up with a survey and report on that aspect. So do reach out to us if you want to know more.